Samstapako Nana Shastra Vicharana Kanipano Shadama Samstapako Lokanam Itakarano Tribhuvane Mano Sharanyakaro Lokanam Itakarano Tribhuvane Mano Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Makalako Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago My respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizing and studying all the Vedic scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So we just wanted to read the short passages. Nectar Devotion is all very small, short passages. Very nice. And we left off last time. What happens if you encounter someone and you cannot correct him? You have to leave that place immediately. You cannot defeat him. And interesting, in Prabhupada's letters, he kept using the word must, that the devotees who are representing this Krishna consciousness movement must be sufficiently educated in order to defeat anyone they might meet on book distribution. He emphasized this over and over again in his purports. Must be sufficiently educated in the knowledge of these books in order to defeat those who might challenge you on book distribution. It's a very important instruction for us. He also said, what is the point of distributing these books if you're not reading these books? So we have to make sure, not on. We have to make sure that everything is properly established. So this is continued. This section is called Tilak, Tulsi Beads, and Flower Garlands. In the Padma Purana, there is a statement describing how a Vaishnava should decorate his body with tilak and beads. That's good. Persons who put Tulsi beads on the neck, who mark 12 places of their body as Vishnu temples with Vishnu's symbolic representations, the 4 items held in the 4 hands of Lord Vishnu, the conch, mace, disc, and lotus, and who have Vishnu tilak on their forehead, are to be understood as the devotees of Lord Vishnu in this world. Their presence makes the world purified, and anywhere they remain, they make that place as good as Vaikuntha. A similar statement is in the Skanda Purana, which says, persons who are decorated with tilak or gopi chandan, a kind of clay resembling fuller's earth which is produced in certain quarters of Vrindavan, and who mark their bodies all over with the holy names of the Lord, and on whose neck and breast there are tulsi beads, are never approached by the Yamadutas. The Yamadutas are the constables of King Yama, the Lord of Death, who punishes all sinful men. Vaishnavas are never called for by such constables of Yamaraj. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, In the narration of Ajamil's deliverance, it is said that Yamaraj gave clear instructions to his assistants, not to approach the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are beyond the jurisdiction of Yamaraj's activities. In the Padma Purana, it is also mentioned, a person whose body is decorated with the pulp of sandalwood, with paintings of the holy name of the Lord, delivered from all sinful reactions. And after his death, he goes directly to Krishna Loka to live in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The next instruction is that one should put on flower garlands which are offered to the deity. In this connection, in the 11th canto, 6th chapter, 31st verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhava says to Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I have taken things which you have used and enjoyed, such as garlands of flowers, saintly articles, garments and ornaments, and I eat only the remnants of your foodstuff, because I am your menial servant. So therefore I am sure that I shall not be attacked by the spell of material energy." The purport of this verse is that for any person who simply follows these rules and regulations of decorating the body with the marks of tilak of gopi chandan or sandalwood pulp, and who puts on the garlands which are offered to Krishna, there is no question of being conquered by the spell of material energy. At the time of death, there is no question of such a person being called by the constables of Yamaraj. Even if one does not accept all the Vaishnava principles, but still takes the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna or Krishna Prasadam, he will gradually become qualified to rise to the platform of a Vaishnava. Similarly, in the Skanda Purana, Lord Brahma tells Narada, "My dear Narada, anyone who puts on his neck the flower garland, which was formerly used by Krishna, becomes relieved from all disease and reactions to sinful activities, and gradually he gets liberation from the contamination of matter." We'll continue with today's verses, Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 18, text 15 and 16, chapter entitled The Perfection of Renunciation. So I'll just chant the first text 15, and we'll read the short purport and then go to text 16. Sreyavan manubirayat karma prabhavate parabhate nara nyayang va viparatam va panchayatita shahetava. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures. And wrong work is work done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. Text 16. So please repeat. Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu ya pashyati akrita buddhitvan na sa pashyati dormati tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuya pasyat yakrita buddhitvan nasa pasyati dormatai nasa pasyati dormati. Please. Tatra, there, evam, thus, sati, being, kartaram, the worker, atmanam, himself, kevalam, only, to, but, ya, anyone who, pasyati, sees, akrita buddhitvat, due to unintelligence, na, never, sa, he, pasyati, sees, dormati, foolish. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Purport. A foolish person cannot understand that the Supersoul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and the senses, the final cause is the Supreme, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the 4 material causes, but the supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the doer. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurama Taminatasmaya Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangum Langharte Garam Yat Kripatam Aham Bande Shri Gurum Dirataranam. Translations again. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Interesting to see how intelligence, although not included technically as a factor, remains what defines a person in knowledge or a person in ignorance. So Prabhupada in the 10th chapter, the purport to the 4th and 5th verses, Prabhupada gives one. He explains, everyone's familiar with this purport. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, nonviolence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. So in the purport, the first definition, the first quality, intelligence, is also the first definition. So Prabhupada says, the different qualities of living entities, be they good or bad, are all created by Krishna, and they are described here. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in their proper perspective. And knowledge refers to understanding what is spirit and what is matter. Ordinary knowledge obtained by a university education pertains only to matter, and it is not accepted here as knowledge. Knowledge means knowing the distinction between spirit and matter. In modern education, there is no knowledge about spirit. They are simply taking care of the material elements and bodily needs. Therefore, academic knowledge is not complete. So back to the verses we were reading. So then as far as intelligence is concerned, a person in ignorance, he's acting with these same 5 factors. And the arbiter is the same, Krishna as the super soul. He is the decider. The result, good or bad, appears to be determined here by the action of the living entity exercising his intelligence, his spiritual intelligence or his material intelligence. So his spiritual intelligence, we know, Krishna says, Savasichaham riddhisani vishnoma toksmatir ganamapavanam cha. So we get this intelligence if one is acting properly, according to the Shastra, the Sadguru reading, Nana Shastra Vicharanai Nipano, Sadharma Samstapako. So we have, for our purposes, the reference. Everything is there. So technically we have no excuse to be making mistakes. One who is knowledge, one who is in knowledge, one who is properly situated, just like if one goes to a court, he cannot claim ignorance as an excuse. If you say, I didn't know the law was such and such, the judge does not excuse you. Yeah. So that's why they say ignorance is no excuse. So in this situation as well, although someone may claim, I did not know, and they even have a line of defense called by reason of insanity. They will go and say that someone says, I acted out of madness, and therefore I'm not responsible. And that is a valid defense. But one has to be clinically examined by some expert in order to determine that. And it's not something that can be used in the normal course of defense, because it is so difficult. Even Prabhupada makes reference to that. One person was called to testify. One man claimed that he was not responsible due to insanity. So the court ordered a person to examine this individual. And when he returned to the court, the judge said, "So what is your determination?" And he gave his opinion that in the material world, in this world, everyone he's ever examined is more or less crazy. So if you want to accept that as an excuse, then you can accept that. And we see that in relationship to these verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, 40th chapter, 47th chapter. Hamsa, no less than Hamsa, after killing the children of Devaki and Vasudeva, uses this situation, this insanity, that out of ignorance I killed these children only. But now that I have knowledge, I'm begging your forgiveness. But you have to excuse me. So he's using this, essentially this defense, that because I was in ignorance, therefore I was not responsible. I was not in my right mind. So even the demons have a tendency to exploit this situation. But there are so many examples given in this regard, where one action under certain circumstances is accepted, and the same action under different circumstances is not accepted. It's like a soldier on the battlefield. He may kill many dozens of people, but after he goes back to his country, if he kills one person, then he's liable to be punished. But different circumstances. One is sanctioned, and of course we see that Arjuna is facing the same, and Krishna tells him in a similar way. That one who's acting properly, one who's acting under the guidance of the higher authority, then he's not killing. But this is not to be something that just we take arbitrarily. You know, some people will criticize that, well, Krishna is saying that it's okay to kill. In the Bhagavad-Gita, how your religion is sanctioning such activities like this. So one has to be well versed in order to explain to them. And the example Prabhupada gave of the soldier on the battlefield is a very good example, because everyone can relate to that. We're in an age of constant war, you know, and people get medals for killing the enemy. You know, but that same person, he comes back, if he shows his medals and said, I killed so many people, why you want to punish me now? So in this way, in all circumstances, one has to be guided by his intelligence. One time, one devotee had an exchange with Srila Prabhupada. In a letter, Prabhupada basically told him, you can surrender everything, but you don't surrender your intelligence. Because if you're using your intelligence properly, then it will guide you. Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tatagaru. And that, what is that intelligence? To develop faith in the words of the spiritual master, by hearing, by serving. Tadvidi Pranipatena. This is not some accidental process that some person gets a higher understanding or a more determinate outlook and approach to spiritual life. While some people seem to have so much difficulty all the time, for whatever reason, struggling with the six senses in the mind. So it should be understood by reason of intelligence that if you apply the instructions given by Guru and Krishna, then you will get the result of having this Dhiras tatra namuyate. This ability to remain undisturbed, even at the time of death. Even at the time of death. So this is the biggest challenge. So if we're disturbed now by even small things, oh, the water was too cold, the water was too hot, sometimes we experience that, New devotees come in and they need some thick razai, they can't sleep on a chatai, they have some complaints, this, that, the other thing. So everybody has their different, how can you say, sense of comfort. But for one who has come for the right purpose, to surrender, then he is willing to accept any austerity, because he knows that the benefit far exceeds any discomfort I might experience in the short term. If someone came to you and said the price of going back to Godhead was that you sleep on the floor, everyone would say, yes, why not? Small price to pay. But we make, how can you say, concessions in our own mind. I can only do devotional service under these circumstances. I have to have this, I have to have that. Then where is that? Yayatamam prapadente tam sitava bhajamyam. Krishna is saying, as you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. So we have to take these words and we have to implement them to whatever extent possible. Don't be afraid of austerity, accepting some situation which may appear to be difficult. Difficult is, getting on a tramp steamer at the age of 69 and coming across the ocean to land in New York Harbor. That's difficult, Experiencing 2 heart attacks, all the time. Only solace reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. How much absorbed in the order of the spiritual master, to undergo these things. And you read the Prabhupada's diary, the early days. Is everyone reading any time? The early days you're reading? You can subscribe online. Everything is there now. And every day there's an entry you read this day. So just like today, October, whatever it is, you read that verse. And you see Prabhupada's diary entry on this, whatever it is, whether it's on the Jaladuta, and now he's in New York, and he's speaking to some people, and he was opining how Dr. Mishra is very offensive. Why? Because he was criticizing Prabhupada wearing tilak and kunti. Just we're reading in the Nectar Devotion how important it is. Okay, 500 rupees. So the Prabhupada, of course, the diary, you write things in a diary you don't expect anyone to read. So he's writing in the diary that this Dr. Mishra is offensive. He's criticizing Kunti and Tilak. So that it's just another indication of the austerity that Srila Prabhupada had to put up with. To be in the home of someone who is so against the cult of bhakti. A complete Mayavadi, or worse even. Mayavadis, sometimes they're not offensive directly, but this Dr. Mishra is very offensive. And what did Prabhupada do? Because we read in the Nectar Devotion last week. He left. He left, even though he was in a comfortable situation with Dr. Mishra. He was, doing kirtan, he was preaching, he was making connections. Because Mishra was offensive, just after this incident, Prabhupada left. And he asked, please get me a place. He didn't want to associate with this person. So just think how things might have been different had Prabhupada not gone to the Lower East Side. But because he stuck to his principles, this is the key. Even if there's some comfortable situation, because he stuck to his principles, he left. Even though it's a complete unknown situation. And when he went down to the Bowery, you know how difficult it was there, staying with these people temporarily, But it was better than being with the Mayavadi. Better to be with this person and his girlfriend in that loft at 94, even though they were meat eaters and like this. He thought that's a better situation. So we have to use our intelligence in all circumstances. You know, in this, but not misuse it, like Hamsa. You know, this idea that you can kill someone and then, you know, have some revelation that, no, now I'm in full knowledge. So therefore, what I did previously should be forgiven. Of course, great souls, Devaki and Vasudev, so they accepted. You know, okay, what can be done? And eventually those 6 sons came back, but in the meantime, there we see how, and of course Hamsa didn't escape. He met the cruel hands of fate in the form of adolescent Krishna at a later date. So ultimately what goes around comes around. And we have the benefit of seeing all these things and hearing them. So we have the examples, we have the circumstances, that just like these 5 factors, we have the examples before us to know what will happen when we act in this way or that way. So this is a great benefit, that we're able to approach everything we do, basically, from the platform of knowledge, if we choose to. If we lapse into some false ego, that I'm thinking I'm still who I was prior to my initiation, or this or that, the other thing. What is that verse? Ishvaraham aham bhogi siddhaham balavan sukhi. Go back to that platform. Ishvaraham, I am the controller. Ishvaraham aham bhogi, I am the enjoyer. Siddhaham, I am perfect. Perfect, balavan sukhi, powerful and happy. So if we act in that platform, then we can understand that we'll have to get the same results as Hamsa. You know, cruel death will approach us in some way or another, just at the moment we don't expect. Right? People are always thinking, no, at the time of death I'll chant, or when I'm old I'll chant. There was one person from this area. Well, actually, he was from the south, but he was practicing in this area. And he was young, handsome, and he was his practice was booming and his business was booming. And he went to the south to do some whatever, family business or business. And while he's driving on the road, a cement pole suddenly fell down and crushed the car he was in. Instantaneous, left his body. With no warning whatsoever. So that's how quickly death can happen. No warning whatsoever. Just driving along in the car and all of a sudden, next moment you're at wherever, Yamaraja's front desk. And Chitragupta is there reading all your, and you're wondering, how did I get here? How did I get here? It's that quick. So no one wants to meet Chitragupta because he knows everything. Nothing escapes him. Everything is in the book. He is Yamaraja's executive secretary, personal assistant. There's many stories about people who have encountered, who have tried to cheat death, cheat Yamaraj, but none of them are successful. Ultimately, death wins. And you have to be prepared. So we have this benefit that we're here, properly situated. Prabhupada said the temple is a transcendental place. There is no better place to live than in a temple. The safest place. You know, sometimes we have other situations, go houses, we live outside, we do these things. But Prabhupada gives his opinion. No safer place than a temple. The temple is transcendental. Someone may say, well, my home is transcendental. Okay. But, you know, you would have to have some pretty good reasons. Maybe Prabhupada came into your house and installed your deities there. That's possible. Not likely, but possible. But you go to these temples here where Prabhupada personally installed these deities, or to New York, or to many other temples where Prabhupada. So if someone wants to think that, no, my home is a safer place. No, he's just, how can you say, making some justification based on his immature knowledge. Otherwise, why do we make so much endeavor to build temples? Prabhupada said the only reason we build temples is for devotees to come, to live, to practice, to learn, like that. That's why they're here. And yes, and then he would send the mature grihastha couples, and what would he send them to do? He wouldn't send them out to open up, go live someplace. He said, no, you go open temples. He sent them to open temples. He sent Tamal Krishna and Guru Das and Sham to London. And then from there they went to Paris. And then to Germany. And places like that. They didn't just go live in a house. They opened temples. So this is our business also. At a certain point, in 1976, in a conversation, Prabhupada said, now we have enough temples. We have enough men. So he gave two instructions. One, he said, boil the milk. Anyone heard that quote? Boil the milk? Okay. That means to extract the essence, evaporate the water, get rid of what's unnecessary. And he specifically was speaking about personnel, but in a very diplomatic, delicate way. He was talking about we don't need, he even said, we need a few good men and ladies, okay, to do this work. We don't need many followers. There's always two types of followers. That's those who follow and those who imitate. So we don't want people who are just imitating. But that happens. It's to be expected. So we should be cautious. And Prabhupada warned the GBCs. He said you should take care that the temples are kept in a condition where we're creating brahmanas. So it's very important. And then his other instruction in 76 was, we have enough temples, now open reading rooms and restaurants. It's very interesting. Reading rooms and restaurants. He was on a morning walk in a very upscale part of New York City called Central Park South. All the millionaires and billionaires all live this area, overlooking Central Park and their penthouses. It's the most prestigious address practically in the world, Central Park South. And so on this one block, there's a famous institution, well, the library connected to the institution, called the Christian Science Library. It's not a real religion, but they call themselves Christian scientists. But they're just some intellectuals, and they have some loose connection to Christianity. But their reading rooms are first class. And when Prabhupada passed by, he says, this is what we want. And the storefront was floor-to-ceiling glass. And when you look inside, all well-dressed gentlemen sitting in these easy chairs with stacks of books, rows of bookcases, they're called stacks, whole length of this block. And they could go and pick from all the so-called classics in the various disciplines. And they sit there and they read very comfortably. And Prabhupada said, we want this. We want such a place that gentlemen come and sit and read our books. And then a place for them to take restaurants. So he said to combine the two, reading rooms and restaurants. Because every temple has that potential. In our old temple in Manhattan, we had a very nice restaurant. And we had many books there so that anyone could, after eating the meal, sit down comfortably and read. So this was an attempt to follow that instruction. And then when we moved to the next building, we were building specifically that situation, restaurant, reading room, cultural center. But that didn't manifest at the time. But we should understand that the orders of the spiritual master are always pregnant in the sense that they can take birth anytime if someone just takes that to heart. So many things we can do. Someone is saying, oh, everything's been done. There's temples everywhere. What should I do? Go open a reading room in a restaurant. So we don't have any shortage of services right there. And we see these 5 factors of action, and we know this. What is these things philosophically? But the most important thing is that Krishna is there. And nothing happens except by his will. Not a blade of grass. So who are we? So we have to somehow or other invoke the benediction. And of course, we know that Krishna is pleased when his servant is pleased. And Prabhupada uses that same analogy of, you pet the man's dog, you become his friend. And there's even, in India, Prabhupada once used the analogy. They have this, now they don't have anything anymore. They used to have gramophone. Everyone knows gramophone? Record? Older people know, right? Younger people have never seen gramophone. So one famous gramophone is called HMV. Everyone knows what HMV means? His master's voice. Because I had a dog listening to the gramophone, and his ears were up. Why? Because he could recognize his master's voice. So Prabhupada used that analogy. That we have to recognize our master's voice. This is key to our success. That we should only be hearing. Sometimes, we want to hear from this or that, some pastimes, that's fine, there's no injunction. But primarily we should be concerned with hearing from our masters, 100%. And not just someone says, well, these are our masters also. No. We have our Nana Shastra Vichar, we have our 6 Goswamis. These are our masters. And we're coming in that line. So yes, Prabhupada indicated we should know all these literatures. And now by the grace of so many devotees who've carefully translated, who are in our line, Prabhupada always made that thing, in our line, that we can so get access to these scriptures. If one has already read, and Prabhupada also said, one time a devotee was asking, he was showing that he's been reading other things. And Prabhupada said, so you've read all of my books? First thing Prabhupada said, so you've read all of my books? So this is not, we don't, and Prabhupada was saying it in a manner that was not judgmental, but it's a question that we should be able to answer. Have you read all of Prabhupada's books? And then Prabhupada's books have expanded in so many ways through his lectures. So have you listened to all of Srila Prabhupada's lectures? Somebody said, no. So technically, then why are you reading something else? You haven't heard all of Prabhupada's lectures, you haven't read all of his books, but yet you want to read about some Gopi Bhav. So we spoke about that in the last class. Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. So we have to be a little careful and remain somewhat humble. It doesn't matter if we're 40, 50 years or 4 years. One should not think of himself as some scholar. If whatever he's heard, if whatever he's learned doesn't help him to follow the orders of the spiritual master, then it is useless. It is useless. He can say anything. You see these pandas. I was just looking at one signboard outside this temple, the Swami Narayan temple on the Purukar Marg. And they have every single pastime in a thumbnail. And then they have a guy sitting there. He's a complete Mayavadi. No kunti, no tilak, just the orange robes. And he's going to tell people about the pastimes of Krishna at all the places in Vrindavan. And who is this person? And what is his qualification? He's simply parroting that, yes, here Krishna met the wives of the Brahmins, and here Krishna met Akrura, and here this and here that, but this is truly milk touched by the lips of a serpent. There's absolutely no benefit, and great danger. Great danger. Because maybe someone who's young, he thinks, oh, I can hear all these pastimes nicely. I don't have to even read Krishna book. Just go listen to this guy. Like that. So the tendency is there to take shortcuts. Just like in grade school, someone is using a crib sheet. Everyone know what crib sheet means? Cheat sheet. He marks some paper and then he takes it into the classroom, and then during the test he like this, and he has a cheat sheet. You cannot cheat your way back to Godhead. It doesn't work. Cannot be done. There are no shortcuts. The one shortcut Prabhupada said, one devotee claimed that he was not very advanced, this, that, there. Prabhupada said, I know a shortcut. This is the only shortcut. He said, you grab hold of my dhoti, and I will take you back with me. So that is the only shortcut. But for some people that's too simple. No, they have to be able to read, all the Vedas and all the Puranas and all this and all that. That's it. Because they're not simple at heart. They're not simple. What is the need for so much erudition? We understand. First, that we're not these bodies. And everything else, and of course, like I said, we're not using this as an excuse to commit any abominable activities and say, I'm not responsible. Krishna made me do it. There are some people who think like this. Krishna made me do it. No, it wasn't Krishna. It was Maya, but they're thinking, no. But that's the other aspect of ignorance. That kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna samubhava. Yes. The modes of material nature are always there. They're attending your every move. Wherever you go, wherever your mind goes, there the modes go. You don't escape them except by chanting the holy name. Clearly, listening. And we all know, we're all chanting. So we know what happens. As soon as there's a little inattention, what happens? The body shuts down. That's why you're sleeping in japa. As soon as you're not hearing very clearly, immediately you fall asleep. And what's the remedy? Stand up and hear. You have to have that determination. Not that you keep falling asleep and thinking, I'm just going to struggle through japa, It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The first duty of the day, don't sleep through it. This is the best opportunity to have the best outcome. Because from good japa, what did Prabhupada tell us? And managers, so-called managers, said chant 16 rounds, management will be at your fingertips. He actually said finger points. Prabhupada didn't, it's not colloquial. But in India, everyone understands finger points. So chant 16 rounds and management will be at your finger points. So why? It seems like he's breaking it down almost too simplistically. But if you don't apply it, then you can't appreciate it. And for one who has applied it, he understands completely. Because it goes back to that same principle. Sarvasya chaham ridhisani vishto. Krishna is there within. He's giving us remembrance, knowledge, forgetfulness, and intelligence. So we shouldn't discount the simple, routine activities of Krishna consciousness in favor of some other seemingly, more esoteric aspect that we think will bring us some greater enlightenment. It doesn't work like that. You listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, you will never hear him, not one time, detail anything except what he thought was in our best interests. So this is an indication. This is a very clear indication, but some people choose to ignore it. So we should be cautious always in our dealings with the spiritual master, the devotees, the deities. These basic things, because just like death, disease, fire, and flood, everyone knows that from Chanakya? These 4 things can kill you, so they should be avoided. Death, even death, disease, fire, and flood. So one has to avoid committing offenses, minimizing the scripture, the spiritual master, the devotees, and the deities. And minimize just doesn't mean talking about behind someone's back or something, but it means even in casual dealings, not giving the proper respect. You know, not following the etiquette. You know, doesn't matter, big devotee, old devotee, new devotee. We should have it as part of our behavior. We should be constantly thinking that I am being, not only is the super soul within my heart, who sees everything, aware of all my actions, thoughts, activities, things like this. So therefore I should behave and hopefully set a good example that others will not condemn our movement because of my misbehavior. Like that. So we have a big responsibility. And we're wearing tilak and kunti, so everyone knows that we're a devotee. So even when we're in New York City, even if we're out on book distribution, even if we're wearing street clothes, we still have tilak and kunti. You know, and so therefore, if people condemn us because of our misbehavior, then the whole movement gets a bad name. We have to be conscious of this. It's not just me. I'm not simply acting independently, individually, but I'm representing my spiritual master and an entire mission. You know, in the military also we have that sense that you know, you represent something greater than yourself. So we should also have that sense that we represent something greater than ourselves. And anything we do will be calculated in that regard by others who are observing. You know? So what did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he also opined, at least become a gentleman. At least become a gentleman. Such a minimum thing, really. But it requires some level of intelligence to understand that, yes, how to interact. You know, and what are the benefits? So we don't have the benefit of the clock is broken. So it's 10 minutes to 6. So class ends shortly. Are there any questions or comments? I can read the translations again. Text 15 and 16. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Hari Bol.
Correct. The 5 factors you are saying, which this is always we converse on with each other. These 5 factors are forcing us to do whatever if we don't want to do also. When you say we have some independent, I have independent, but I want to do something, but somebody is stopping me not to do. So how do we consider this?
Well, I mean, unless circumstances, ultimately the super soul. So one can take counsel from his peers, from his superiors, and in this way he invokes that principle. Even the karmis say 2 heads are better than 1. Why do they say that? Because I may not be seeing the whole picture. So by all means, sadhu sangha, sarva saschakoi, lava matra, sadhu sangha, sarva siddhyo. So lava matra means 1 moment association. 1 moment. So what to speak, we have so much association. So we can get some feedback instantaneously, basically. As long as I'm not shy, of course. You know, sometimes the mind says such outrageous things, you don't want to speak them out loud. But with regards to our activities in Krishna consciousness, if someone is thinking, is this a good way to preach? Is this a good way to act? No, by all means, we understand. We approach our authorities, or our God brothers, or our God sisters, and we inquire. Says, what do you think about this? I had an idea. There's no harm. No one's going to, I mean, you know, under the circumstances, we should appreciate that if a person, what's that verse? Dadati putti grinati, goyamakyati prachiti bhunkti bhojayate chaiva. Pritti lakshanam, that there is some exchange. One reveals his mind. These are the ways we associate. Giving, receiving, hearing, listening. You know, I mean, if you wanted to write down what are the benefits of living in a temple, so many. All of these things. At every moment, you see the benefits. Yes, Peru.
Thank you, for sharing your wisdom and experience. I heard yesterday about the idea was expressed that according to a person's breadth of their intelligence, breadth of their understanding, we can surrender to them accordingly. So, for example, Srila Prabhupada was so in tune with the will of Krishna that you can surrender to him practically as you surrender to Krishna. But now in ISKCON we have a situation, there's no particular acharya, but we each have our own spiritual master, God family, within that. And I was told it's different now. It's not that you surrendered to him the same way Srila Prabhupada's disciples surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. But we have to surrender to him knowing that there may be other spiritual masters and devotees who have an even broader perspective than our spiritual master, and be willing to learn from them as students. Might be able to comment and help clarify this idea for me?
Well, it seems we've been doing that all along. I mean, I have fond memories of listening to our older God brothers and relishing their intelligence and introspection with regards to hearing from Srila Prabhupada or by reading Srila Prabhupada's books. This forms the basis also of our appreciation for our God family. That everyone is reading from the same playbook. Everyone know what a playbook is? When you play a game, a sports game, like football, American football, but even in Indian football, there's certain plays that are used, that are successful. They're strategies. And the players study them. And then they execute them on the field. And they're all reading from the same playbook. They're all acting in concert. So as long as whoever we hear from is giving the same conclusion, he can have his perspective based on his intelligence, because we know we're not yeyataman prapadyante. But there's no lack there the surrender, the principle of surrendering is to the, we see that Srila Prabhupada has given us this amazing vehicle. So it's just a question of opening the door and getting in one sense. But if we start to break it down that this is some conglomerate of various component parts and all are distinct or individual but not really related, then it minimizes the benefit of the association, of the society. So we have to appreciate that, yes, there may be different levels of advancement and realization, and we're free to hear all of them because we're all in the same family. These are our uncles or our aunties or our brothers or our sisters, you know, and all of the acharyas. We're hearing from them. You know, there's a little danger in thinking that this person is greater than this person is better than this person. That should not be part of our calculation. It should just be that we're hearing from these individuals who have surrendered to Prabhupada, you know, or to their gurus, and to that extent, they will demonstrate a certain potency and success in their preaching field, and we can measure in that way if we like. If we're looking for some yardstick, and look for that. Who is successful in their preaching? Who is successful in bringing those persons to Krishna consciousness? It is not a competition, again. It is not that, you know, this guru has 50,000 disciples and this guru has 5. This is not the criteria. And Prabhupada indicated, I'm just looking for one moon. One moon. And we should see how that worked in his case. We have the example. You know, that, but we don't condemn others that are stars. You know, the moon is there and the stars are there. And all have their respective illumination. So we should be thankful that we have such diversity of thought. At the same time, we'll see how things increase or not according to our sincerity. Where the next, you know, we have to take these instructions first internally ourselves to the extent that we can, and then consider, and not to think that, no, I have understood more than this person or that person. It doesn't, there's no profit. If I have understood this much, then let me apply it. Let me do something. Maybe there's some situation that I can help in and utilize my realization, my determination, my conviction. Not to think that I have more than this person or that person. But everything will be tested. Everything will be tested. Don't think that you will not get some challenging situation. And if you walk away, then what is the use of all of your reading and chanting and this and that, the other thing, when that situation comes, that nimitta matram bhava savyasachin, when you get the opportunity to become an instrument, and you, not this time, I'll wait for the next opportunity. Take every opportunity as if it's a gift from Krishna. Then you will know. You will see. When Prabhupada sent these devotees to London, these were all young men in their early 20s. They had nothing, they had firm faith and conviction in the words of their spiritual master. That's all they had. So if the spiritual master says, go and preach in Transylvania, then what's the loss? But if you think in your mind, no, I don't speak Transylvanian, I sleep at night, not in the day, you know, whatever. There's so many things the mind could conjure in order to, and this is the point, bandhu atmat manas tasya, you know, the mind is the best friend or the worst enemy. Just take it. It's the karmis have that. It's almost trite, but sometimes they say these things and it hits the mark, and they say, just do it. So just do it. If we have the faith that this movement is sanctioned by none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, what can't we do? And everything we do sincerely will have a positive result. And we've seen it for the last 53 years. We've seen it. And we've seen failures. And we can study them if we like and see, okay, what happened here in this case. People do this all the time. You don't want to commit the same mistake, you study a failed business plan. People who achieve success, how do they achieve it? Because they weren't afraid of failure. Again, all those trite little sayings. If at first you don't succeed, try again. It has some meaning, right? When we first go out to distribute a book, if the first 100 people don't take the book, do you stop? No, we continue. We just continue. Because that is our duty. Yes, it doesn't always happen. I remember vividly feeling completely dejected that no one is taking a book for whatever reason. So you have to think, maybe I should just stop, go back to the van, take a nap, or whatever, But no, you just do it because the next person that comes, because if you just do that, the next person takes the book. Because Krishna wants to test your sincerity, Yes, Guru.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that the shortcut method is to grab hold of Srila Prabhupada's dot. So, for us, what is the practical way for doing that? Is it listening to his lectures, as you mentioned, reading his books, somehow imbibing his mission, or
Prabhu was mentioning about, God family. It's a very nice way to see things in perspective. Thank you for that. The more we consider it in that way, the more practical we see that, yes, listening to Prabhupada's instructions here and there, we find a firm footing in our grandfather's wisdom. Even Allen Ginsberg, at one time, in an introduction to the original purple Bhagavad-Gita. Has anyone seen? Now they have some duplicates. So it was a very thin, there was no Sanskrit, and it was the first Bhagavad-Gita, published by Macmillan, very abridged. And many people, the funny thing is when you read Prabhupada's words, it doesn't matter if they're this thick or this thick. Immediately you get the benefit. In the foreword, Allen Ginsberg, of all people, he was a very popular person at the time that this was printed. So he called Prabhupada's, this philosophy of Krishna consciousness, Hindu granny wisdom. Hindu granny wisdom. Granny means grandma. Hindu granny wisdom. Very simple, but it's a fact that, this wisdom has that effect of having the weight of the entire parampara coming down to this particular person. So in that sense, yes, he is the most munificent, benevolent grandfather. And we all have, it's not a distant memory. Everything is there. And when we listen to Srila Prabhupada, it's as fresh as if he's speaking, from the Vyasa-san here in 1975. It's right there. You hear everything. You hear the sparrows, you hear the parrots. Same as today, no difference. This continuity is very special. And the more we maintain this continuity, the more successful we'll be and the more successful our movement will be. Evam parampara praptim imam rajasayo viduhu. We don't want someone to say the science as it is appears to be lost. The Krishna conscious movement as it is appears to be lost. Many are saying already. They like to minimize. That, oh, you don't do this, you don't do that, There's all the dogs barking and the caravans passing. But we have to be strong. Otherwise, sometimes we may get lost from the caravan. And it's happened. We've seen it. So, yes, taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, everyone can take shelter of Srila Prabhupada. That's just, there's no one can, for the foreseeable future, will ever be able to challenge his authority. But we don't minimize, his disciples or their disciples. Any disciples who are following or in the line. Prabhupada said, in the line. Very keen. We have to maintain that. Any other questions, Prabhu? Any questions from the ladies' side? Ladies? Any more questions, Prabhus? And we'll get ready to offer our lamps to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Bhagavad-Gita as it is.